LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the January 16th special Tuesday edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me. I'll be using the 10 best, most newsworthy clips I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows and Iowa Caucus coverage from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, for what should be a really informative, educational, fair use, media criticism, and political commentary show for you all this morning. At least it's morning here in California where I am. You can see I made my topic Trump wins Iowa caucus, gets best possible outcome by keeping two rivals. And that is actually kind of a surprising outcome. If you looked at the last NBC Des Moines Register Mediacom poll that I'll show was covered extensively in the Sunday morning news analysis shows, but that one actually had Nikki Haley coming in second place and beating Ron DeSantis. Here's this is the NBC News Des Moines Register Mediacom poll that was talked about on Fox News Sunday. You'll see in the news summary later. You notice the margin of error is 3.7%, and all of these results are within that margin of error, except Ron DeSantis. He actually did better. Here's like the results from CNN last night. You see DeSantis did about 5 points better than the Des Moines Register poll said he would do. And Haley came in third, not second. And that means that Trump still has two rivals, splitting the anti-Trump vote, which is definitely the best possible outcome for him, hence the title of my video today. I'm going to show you, first I'm going to start with some political comedy. There's this new MSNBC show, The Weekend, that's in the mornings on the weekend, and they had an NBC reporter, Vaughn Hillyard, on, and he made this great analogy for the Republican Party I'm about to show you. Then I'll show you the beginning of all the or the top three candidates' speeches in Iowa last night and talk about that and about the coverage of it a little bit. And then I'm going to end with the big five corporate outlet news summaries from Sunday, and we can kind of compare their discussion to what actually happened, since now we know the results and they were all talking about what was going to happen in Iowa. And it's kind of, that's one of the reasons I delayed the show, was to have kind of that interesting perspective on the Sunday morning news analysis shows news summaries. So like if you look down in the video description, you can see short summaries of all the clips I'm going to show you. So you can follow along with the 10 clips. And anyway, like I promised, Owen, if you stay, keep watching all the way to the end, I have two kittens here named Cheech and Chong. And I will show a bonus Cheech and Chong clip. The Cheech and Chong are likely to appear live during the show, as the viewers of the last few weeks of my show know. So anyway, I'm going to start with this Vaughn Hillyard analogy about the Republican Party and Thanksgiving, and you'll see Michael Steele and Symone Sanders Townsend sort of chime in with a little extra comedy at the end, and I'll talk about that a little more with you after we watch that first clip together over here.
And I think over the course of the last year, I keep coming back to this idea that Donald Trump is the grandfather of today's Republican Party. And a grandfather is only strengthened with every passing year. And it is hard to take the knife away from the grandfather at Thanksgiving when he's the one in charge of the turkey. And yeah, last year, maybe the turkey wasn't all that great. And maybe, he added on some questionable stuffing sides and cranberry sauce. But guess what? Which cousin, which aunt, which second cousin, many of whom he brought into the family for Thanksgiving, which of them are going to go to him and say, put the knife down, somebody else is in charge? And right now, not only do you see from this electorate, but by and large, Republican elected officials. That's where Kim Reynolds, she's kind of the odd one out here. But not many have actually come over the last year to say Donald Trump is no longer in charge. And frankly, the cousins, you could call them the electorate, don't appear ready to do so either.
That's a messed up Thanksgiving
Come on,
dinner.
cousins.
That is one messed up Thanksgiving dinner. I swear. Who's carving the turkey? So, Allie, as we digest that part of our meal, chapating.
Can I get some wine with this?
I'm just trying to figure out, is the electorate, I'm sorry.
You have a lot of time. You have a lot of time on the road, guys. Okay, you got a lot of time on the road around here.
The electorate is the cousins.
Okay.
I guess Governor Reynolds is the rich auntie that's coming to bring some.
Is the rich auntie who brings the cranberry?
There we go.
And then there is that crazy uncle who brings the pound cake, but it made it with fruit. So anyway, so Allie.
I think they overstretched that analogy a little bit, but I promised possible live kitten appearances. This is Cheech, the medium hair brother, and he's shown up to appear on the show. He seems kind of interested in what's going on here, so thought I would share that with you. And I don't know. I thought that analogy was okay at the beginning, and then I don't even know what the pound cake with the fruit in it was supposed to represent. Does anyone know what the pound cake with the fruit in it was supposed to represent? Anyway, I'm now going to show you clips of the top three candidates, basically the only three candidates left. I saw in the live comments someone was pointing out that Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out of the contest yesterday, and apparently today he's going to do a rally with Donald Trump in New Hampshire, a pro-Trump rally, and Vivek is going to come and endorse Trump. Well, like he never didn't endorse Trump, but actually one of the interesting things about Trump's victory last night was that he started off his speech with like a totally different tone. It's for those who've been watching Trump for like 8 years now or whatever, as a politician and president and former president, twice impeached, 4 times indicted, former president and all that. Well, a lot of the time, like when he was running and when he was president and he was going to run for re-election, people kept saying, Trump's going to pivot. Trump's going to pivot. He's finally going to, stop sounding so crazy. And if he just like was more disciplined in his messaging, he actually could win over some independents and maybe some more moderate Democrats. But he's like says all this crazy stuff, and he sounds like a fascist dictator a lot of the time. The immigrants poisoning the blood of our nation, and root them out like the vermin they are, and all that stuff. But he actually started off at the beginning of the speech. I'm like, wait, 8 years in, Trump's finally going to pivot? I'll show you the beginning of the speech. One thing I wanted to point out, MSNBC did not show this speech at all. I'm going to show you the clip from Fox News. CNN did show it, but then didn't show the whole speech. And I'll talk about that a little more after we watch like the first 2 minutes of Trump's speech, where he almost sounded conciliatory, and, he just wants to bring everybody together, guys. This whole thing about Trump being divisive, it's not true. I'll show you. 2 minutes right here.
Well, I want to thank everybody. This has been some period of time, and most importantly, we want to thank the great people of Iowa. Thank you. We love you all. What a turnout, what a crowd. And I really think this is time now for everybody, our country, to come together. We want to come together. Whether it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative, it would be so nice if we could come together and straighten out the world and straighten out the problems and straighten out all of the death and destruction that we're witnessing. That's practically never been like this. It's just so important, and I want to make that a very big part of our message. We're going to come together. It's going to happen soon, too. It's going to happen soon. I want to thank some of the great people. We have so many senators. If I go through every name, we'll be here all night, and everybody's going to get angry at me. But the senators, the congressmen from Washington, they came down from all different states. I want to thank you very much. I want to congratulate Ron and Nikki for having a good time together. We're all having a good time together. And I think they both actually did very well. I really do. I think they both did very well. We don't even know what the outcome of second place is. And I see Carrie Lake. Congratulations, Carrie. Very good. I spotted her, I have to announce, because she's terrific. She's going to be a senator, a great senator, I predict, right? You're going to be a great senator. And I also want to congratulate Vivek, because he did a hell of a job. He came from 0, and he's got a big percent, probably 8%, almost 8%, and that's an amazing job. They all did. They're all very smart people, very capable people. I think most importantly, I want to thank my incredible wife.
When have you ever heard Donald Trump say people opposing him are smart, capable people? Very, very rarely. That was, I don't, and like he started off the whole speech, it's time to come together, liberals and conservatives, even the vermin, he even wants to come together with the vermin that he was going to root out. But no, now we're all just one big happy family with some vermin, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the speech actually didn't stay at that tone the whole time. A few minutes in, he went back into like his several minutes of his tropes about, American carnage and invasion of immigrants and, insane. They're coming from insane asylums and they're emptying out their insane asylums and their prisons, and Trump or the Biden is the worst president ever. Jimmy Carter's so happy because now he's not the worst president ever. I mean, it was law there. He went back to, he didn't pivot. But one person who did pivot was Jake Tapper. I mentioned this earlier, how MSNBC showed none of the Trump speech, and a little snippet of the Ron DeSantis speech, and then almost all of the Nikki Haley speech. CNN or Fox News showed the whole Trump speech and the whole Ron DeSantis speech, but then came a little late to the Nikki Haley speech. I'm not sure why. I had to go over to CNN to get the whole Nikki Haley beginning. And CNN showed all of Ron DeSantis, all of Nikki Haley, but then for Trump, when he started to segue into the anti-immigrant stuff, Jake Tapper instead pulled away from the speech and gave his commentary. I don't know what you think about that as a journalistic choice, but I'm going to show you that 2 minutes from CNN where Trump pivoted away from his pivot, and then Jake Tapper pivoted away from the speech over here.
We're going to come together. We're going to drill, baby, drill right away. Yeah. Drill, baby, drill. We're going to seal up the border. Because right now we have an invasion. We have an invasion of millions and millions of people that are coming into our country. I can't imagine why they think that's a good thing.
Donald Trump declaring victory with a historically strong showing in the Iowa caucuses. If these numbers hold, the biggest victory for a non-incumbent president in the modern era for this contest. A relatively subdued speech as these things go so far, although here he is right now under my voice. You hear him repeating his anti-immigrant rhetoric. He did take time to praise his rivals, Haley and DeSantis and Ramaswamy by name. Rather un-Trump-like to do that. Gracious, but perhaps a sign of some message discipline, at least for one night. He also praised his wife, all 5 of his children, all 5 by name. The victory for Mr. Trump was a decisive one. The numbers still coming in, but Trump on course as of now to have the strongest showing of any non-incumbent in the modern era of the Iowa caucuses. And the entrance polls show how, with majorities of caucus goers saying that they believe the lie that President Biden didn't win legitimately. It's a false belief, but it shows the degree to which Trump has remade and refashioned the Republican Party in his image, not only with new Republican voters coming in, but also by convincing Republicans of his ideology, even when empirically false. Mr. Trump, of course, facing 91 felony charges, and the majority of caucus goers today said that they would vote for him for president even if convicted, whether related to his attempts to overturn the 2020 election or his handling of classified materials. Either way, nonetheless, a powerful, powerful victory for him, record-breaking if the numbers hold. Aaron?
So I don't know. Do you think that Jake Tapper commentary was worth breaking away from Trump's speech? I mean, honestly, I think that all three of those network, well, all of the corporate networks should have shown the full Trump speech. I mean, he's the winner of the Iowa caucus. I mean, a lot of times, maybe you can have some editorial discretion as to whether you show one of Trump's like 90-minute rants at one of his rallies. That was like one of the mistakes they made back in 2015 and 2016, just showing a lot of unfiltered Trump lies. And I guess that's the thing that CNN is trying to avoid by pivoting away, and MSNBC avoided by not showing the Trump speech at all. But honestly, I think you still have to show the victory speech of someone who took more than half the vote in Iowa. But you saw the CNN commentary, and that's basically what was on MSNBC during the Trump speech. A lot of commentary about Trump's troubles, but also what his victory means for the Republican Party. And maybe you can go back to Vaughn Hillyard's Thanksgiving analogy. They don't want to take the knife away from Grandpa, but I don't know. Sometimes it's dangerous to leave Grandpa with the knife. Well, whatever. I'm going to show you the other two surviving Republican candidates from Iowa, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley now. Ron DeSantis, I'm just going to show you about a minute of his speech. They only showed a little bit of it on MSNBC. They showed pretty much the whole thing on Fox News and CNN. And here's Ron DeSantis saying that if you remember, like a year ago, for quite a long time, he was claiming he was going to win Iowa. And what he did is he beat Nikki Haley by like 2%. And lost to Donald Trump by like 30%, which he's spinning into whatever it means to have his ticket punched. That's his like big phrase. I'm not sure. I mean, having watched these presidential primaries and caucuses for many, many years, I know some people say there are 3 tickets out of Iowa or 2 tickets out of Iowa. So I guess he got his ticket punched as one of those tickets out of Iowa. But honestly, where else is Ron DeSantis going to win? How is he going to win any more delegates? I think even though if he had gotten 3rd place, he might have had to actually drop out. But he got 2nd place, so he can at least spend the next week through New Hampshire and maybe then the month after to South Carolina, splitting the vote with Nikki Haley, which, if you look at the title of my video, means this was the best possible outcome for Donald Trump and his campaign. And I'll talk about that or this a little more after we watch this clip together over here.
We love you too. They threw everything but the kitchen sink at us. They spent almost $50 million attacking us. No one's faced that much all the way just through Iowa. The media was against us. They were writing our obituary months ago. They even called the election before people even got a chance to vote. But they were just so excited about the fact that they were predicting that we wouldn't be able to get our ticket punched here out of Iowa. But I can tell you, because of your support, in spite of all of that they threw at us, everyone against us, we've got our ticket punched out of Iowa.
Yay, he got his ticket punched. Although I think it was always there are 3 tickets out of Iowa, so maybe he had his like 3rd place finish speech all prepared, and because if you remember from what I showed you earlier, he was supposed to come in 3rd, and he like outperformed that by 5%, and I don't know why he didn't talk about that more, but so he had his like 3rd place speech all prepared and gave it even though he came in 2nd place. And as I was saying before I showed the clip, I don't really see much of a path for Ron DeSantis to ever, I mean, he might come in 2nd someplace again, but where's he ever going to win any primary? I don't know. Conversely, or in contrast to Ron DeSantis, giving his third place speech, even though he came in second. Apparently, Nikki Haley had a speech all prepared for her expectation, according to this poll, that she would come in second, but she came in third place. And she still gave her second place speech. You'll see she congratulates Donald Trump, never mentions Ron DeSantis, and says that it's now a two-person race, even though she came in third. She doesn't say who the two people are, but she actually does still have a little bit of a path. For those who've been watching my live streams regularly, you know, I've said that she has a very narrow path where she had to get 20% and come in second in Iowa, which she didn't do. She got 19% and third, but it's really close. But if she had come in second, she would have gotten a lot more media attention during the next week before New Hampshire, much more likely to win New Hampshire, although she still might. And then there's a month between New Hampshire and South Carolina, her home state, and that's her path to be the winner in a two-person race against Trump. But the problem is Ron DeSantis isn't dropping out this week. He came in second, and he might even stay in all the way through South Carolina, and that makes it much more difficult for Nikki Haley to find that narrow path to becoming the single competitor to Trump who overtakes him, which all indicators point to. It's now 95% positive Trump's going to be the Republican nominee, despite what Nikki Haley says in this clip.
You know, I want to say before we start.
Oh, and I forgot to say, it's basically at the end of the clip that she calls it a two-person race. She starts the clip by saying all these things about her faith and her family that when we get to the news summaries, you'll see some of them talking about how her favorable versus unfavorable rating has gone way down amongst Republicans. People dislike her a lot more because they associate her as being anti-Trump and they love Trump so much. And anyway, I think the beginning of this speech is she's talking about her faith and her family and trying to get Republicans and especially evangelicals to like her more, is what I think is going on in the beginning of this speech. I was going to say that. So I pre-criticized the clip, and here it is.
You know, I want to say before we start, when you go through something like this, you can't do it unless you have a faith. And God is so good. And I want to say to my husband, who is deployed, who I know may or may not be watching this right now, Michael, I love you. And what keeps me going is I know we sleep under the same stars. So I want to say to Rena and Josh and Nayland, I am so proud of you. The best job I will always have is being your mom. I want to thank my parents who are at home every day. They reminded us how blessed we were to live in America. I want to thank my sweet brother who came out here and was caucusing for me. A good Desert Storm veteran, and I want to thank my other siblings there. I want to thank Michael's parents, Bill and Carol Haley, who've been fantastic along the way as well. You can't do this without the strength of your family. I want to congratulate President Trump on his win tonight. We have had an amazing 11 months here in the Hawkeye State. I came to Iowa early and often, and I kept coming back, even though the cold weather is brutal. But the kindness of Iowans will never be lost on me. You're faithful, patriotic, and hardworking Americans, and I will forever be grateful for the time that we had. At one point in this campaign, there were 14 of us running. I was at 2% in the polls. But tonight, Iowa did what Iowa always does so well. The pundits will analyze the results from every angle. We get that. But when you look at how we're doing in New Hampshire, in South Carolina, and beyond, I can safely say tonight, Iowa made this Republican primary a two-person race.
Of course, she never says who the two persons are, that Iowa made it a two-person race, and it's kind of a weird thing to say when you came in third. But like I said before I showed the clip, I think she gave her second-place speech even though she came in third, kind of like Ron DeSantis was almost giving his third-place speech even though he came in second. And you can let me know what you think about my pre-criticism or analysis of the clip where I was saying that she spent a lot of time talking about her faith and family because she had a lot of negatives and low enthusiasm, but also her favorability has dropped like 11 points in the last month or so as people saw her as more and more anti-Trump. And actually, I'm going to move on to that portion of the program now because what I'm about to show you is the 5 news summaries from the big 5 corporate outlets from Sunday before the Iowa caucuses. And honestly, I haven't watched any of these completely since I knew the results, but I kind of remember what they were talking about. And I think because, as you'll see in the final one, the Fox News Sunday one here, this was a lot of them were talking about the NBC News Des Moines Register poll that had Trump under 50% and Haley in second. And even though they both, that's within the 3.7% margin of error, that's kind of a big difference from Trump getting over 50% and Haley coming in third. And of course, Ron DeSantis did 5 points better than they predicted there. And so I think all of the analysis you're about to see is a little bit skewed towards Iowa giving us Trump versus Haley, but there are some caveats in there, and we can talk about it after we watch the news summaries. I'm going to start with NBC News. As usual, I'm going to go from the longest to the shortest news summary, starting with about 6 minutes of NBC News Meet the Press. They deserve to have the longest one because even though I think at least 3 of these news summaries talk about the NBC News poll, or maybe it's even 4, only NBC actually did the poll with the Des Moines Register and Mediacom. So here's Kristen Welker, and then, of course, the famous Steve Kornacki at the big board, talking both about this poll that was taken right before the caucus, but also looking at some of the internals that make it more likely that Nikki Haley wouldn't be in second. So I think they did a pretty good job of talking about how their poll might not be accurately representing the results, but let's watch it together here and talk about it a little more after we do.
Good Sunday morning from a bitterly cold Des Moines, Iowa, where tomorrow night Republican voters will finally get their say on who they want facing off against President Biden in November. Will former President Trump, who's been dominating the race here despite visiting just 14 of the state's 99 counties, crack 50%? What about the race for second place? Can Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis make a stronger than expected showing and gain momentum? We begin this morning with our new NBC News Des Moines Register Iowa poll, and I'm joined by national political correspondent Steve Kornacki to break it all down. Steve, here we go.
Yeah, Kristen, and let's get right to it. The NBC News poll with the Des Moines Register. They have been doing this for decades. They have one of the best polls in the business. And what do they find on the eve of these Republican caucuses? There it is. Donald Trump continuing to have an enormous lead over the Republican field. Trump at 48%. Nikki Haley now in second place here at 20%, passing Ron DeSantis, who's at 16, Vivek Ramaswamy at 8%. In terms of any change from our previous poll, which was done last month, you do see Trump down a tick. As we said, Haley moving there into second place, Ramaswamy up a couple points. But put this Trump lead in some perspective here. First of all, the 48% that he's registering here, that is the highest share for a Republican candidate in a final Des Moines Register poll ever. That surpasses the record of 43% from George W. Bush on the eve of the 2000 caucuses. Bush won those caucuses. Also the margin, Trump 48, Haley 20. That's a 28-point margin. That is also the biggest margin in a final Register poll, also breaking a record of George W. Bush of 23 points when he won the caucuses in 2000. So that Trump lead, we haven't seen that before, but we've been seeing a lot in the polling this year. What about this question of whether, you mentioned it, everybody's talking about it. Is it going to affect turnout? Could it help someone? Could it hurt someone? We don't know, but maybe this is a measure. Maybe this is a clue. We asked voters, are you extremely enthusiastic about your candidate? And again, you can see basically half of Trump's supporters say extremely enthusiastic. About a quarter of DeSantis' supporters. Here's the worrying note for Nikki Haley. Fewer than 10% of her supporters put themselves in that category. So while she's passed DeSantis for second, are those voters who say they're going to support her right now going to turn out? That question is raised by this number. There's also just the question, we've been seeing this all along, is your mind made up? You see a majority for all candidates now, but more core locked-in support for Trump than the other two. That has been a story, again, we've been seeing throughout this process. Now, take a look at the strengths here, first, that are driving Donald Trump to this big lead. You see it, it's evangelical voters. Back in 2016, they made up about two-thirds, about 2 out of every 3 votes cast in the Iowa Republican caucuses. Trump in 2016 lost evangelicals. He lost them by double digits, and he lost the state. What a turnaround in 8 years. He now has an outright majority. He's nearly 30 points ahead of Ron DeSantis, who has gone hard after evangelicals with this group of voters. The rule in Iowa of late has been, if you win the evangelical vote, you win the Republican caucuses. Trump is absolutely cleaning up in our poll with evangelicals. What has gotten Haley into second place? It's this group. It's independents. They're probably going to make up about 20% of the electorate. Haley not winning this group, but look how close she is to Trump. Haley 33, Trump 37 among independent voters. Now, here is where it gets tricky for Haley, though. She's appealing to independents. And in this poll, we find that fully half of her support in this Iowa poll comes from either self-described independents or self-described Democrats. And it really starts to show when you ask a question like this. We asked supporters of Nikki Haley and we asked supporters of Ron DeSantis, what's your opinion of Donald Trump? And look at this, more than 3 out of 4 Haley voters have a negative view of Donald Trump. She really is consolidating the anti-Trump vote that is out there. And you wonder, is that starting to affect this? This is the basic popularity of each candidate. Trump extremely popular. DeSantis still very popular. Haley, 48-46, favorable, unfavorable. She's become polarizing. A month ago, her favorable rating, nearly 60. Her unfavorable was 31. Favorables come crashing down. Unfavorables gone soaring up for her. You know, it raises that question. Candidates who get associated, we've seen this with Christie, we've seen this with Pence, with anti-Trump forces, with anti-Trump voters, pro-Trump Republicans, and there are a lot of them, tend to turn on them. Is that maybe what we're seeing happen here with Haley supporters? And how about this for a number 2? Again, among Haley supporters, now they don't like Trump in general. We asked, who would you vote for, Biden or Trump, in a general election? This is Nikki Haley supporters in Iowa. 43% say they'd be with Biden, the Democrat. Basically half, a little more than half, 23%, say they'd be with Donald Trump. Again, that speaks to the coalition that Haley seems to be putting together here. And then the final question, the bottom line question, this was asked at the start of the campaign here. Donald Trump, all the legal woes, all of the different trials that are going on here, asking Republicans in Iowa, is it going to hurt him in the general election? Remember, DeSantis got in this race sort of thinking Republicans would think it would. Well, here we go. Eve of the caucuses, basically 3 of 4 Iowa Republican caucus goers say, nope, he can win the race against Joe Biden. Only 23% say that's going to make it awfully tough for Trump. The electability argument, at the beginning of this campaign, we wondered, would it hurt Trump with Republicans? On the eve of the caucuses, doesn't look like it is in Iowa, Kristen.
Now we have our answer, right, Steve? Fascinating breakdown of all of those numbers. Thank you so much. And of course, as you say, the big question, will caucus goers turn out in this big chill? We'll have to wait and see. Steve, thank you.
You got it.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the weather. I mean, the turnout was down from, I think there were 110,000, like the previous contested caucus was 150,000, but it didn't drop that low. You saw Steve Kornacki talk about the internals of the NBC News Des Moines Register Mediacom poll that was the focus of all or almost all the Sunday shows. I think only CBS showed their own poll, so it was actually 4 of the 5. But I think he showed some of the internals, the high unfavorability rating that Nikki Haley has gotten that I was talking about before I showed the clip of her third place finished speech in Iowa where she talked about her faith and family, I think trying to raise her favorability rating a little there, and also low enthusiasm. It was like the very enthusiastic for Nikki Haley versus Ron DeSantis was what, like 9 versus 23%. And it was similar if you added in the enthusiastic and very enthusiastic. I think they may show that in one of these later news summaries. And I'm going to move on to the next news summary. The next longest one was ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. It's Jon Karl and then the reporter Rachel Scott reporting on both the NBC News poll and then the day before the caucus in Iowa over here.
Good morning. Welcome to This Week. The Iowa caucuses are now just hours away. With the first votes finally about to be cast, former President Trump still holds a commanding lead, as neither indictments, nor controversial statements, nor warnings about the threat to democracy seem to have done anything to derail Trump's status as the clear frontrunner, at least in Iowa and at least among Republicans. The Des Moines Register has released its final poll of likely Republican caucus goers, and the former president leads the field at 48%. That's 28 points ahead of Nikki Haley, who has moved into second place, and our guest this morning, Ron DeSantis, who has staked his campaign heavily on the Hawkeye state, stands in third place. And it's not just Iowa. On the national level, we have new numbers this morning from our own ABC News Ipsos poll. It shows Trump in an even more dominant position nationally than he is in Iowa, with 68% of Republican-leaning adults saying they believe Trump has the best chance of winning in November, compared to just 12% for Haley and 11% for DeSantis. And spelling potential trouble on the Democratic side, just 57% of Democrats and independents who lean Democratic say they'd be satisfied with President Biden as the party's nominee. And Biden's approval rating stands at just 33%. That's the lowest for any president in the past 15 years. We'll have much more on our new poll, but first we turn to Iowa, where the final weekend of campaigning has been rocked by an historically frigid winter storm. And our Rachel Scott is there inside in Des Moines this morning. Good morning, Rachel.
John, good morning to you. We have never seen Iowa caucuses like this before. The frontrunner in this race facing 91 criminal charges, still dominating in the polls and only holding one scheduled event this week. But perhaps the biggest curveball, that brutal weather. It's far from the final stretch the Republican candidates were planning for. The campaign trail upended by a brutal blizzard, extreme cold, and life-threatening conditions. Impassable roads, blinding snow, leading the candidates to cancel a slew of campaign events.
They can throw a blizzard at us, and we are gonna fight.
I don't even know what negative 15 is. I was complaining it was cold in Iowa in October.
Aside from the Fox News town hall, frontrunner Donald Trump didn't campaign here throughout the week, instead choosing to spend his time in courtrooms in New York and D.C., making his legal turmoil the central part of his 2024 message.
It's a witch hunt in the truest sense of the word. It's election interference.
The former president calling off his in-person events Saturday, instead going online to urge his supporters not to let his commanding lead or the bitter cold keep them from turning out.
So we have record cold weather, record snowfall, record everything, but we will not miss it. We'll see you on Monday. I'm going to be helping you with the caucus, and I look forward to it.
Much of the focus in Iowa has been on the battle for second place. Voter Tammy Neiman is torn between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis.
I think they're both strong candidates, looking for an alternative to Trump. But I want somebody who can, in the end, beat Joe Biden and be a strong president.
Haley getting a new wave of momentum, now edging out DeSantis here in Iowa in the latest polls.
You feeling confident? No, feeling great. Thank you.
DeSantis has staked his entire campaign on this state, holding more events than Trump and Haley combined, pushing forward with his schedule this weekend when his rivals opted for virtual events.
I'm a Florida boy, born and bred. And yet here I am in negative temperatures. I am not going to be canceled. If people are willing to come out and hear from me, I'm going to show up all the way until the end of this caucus.
Iowa rarely picks the GOP nominee. In fact, no non-incumbent winner has gone on to win the nomination in more than 2 decades. But the caucus does often help narrow the field, though both DeSantis and Haley say no matter the outcome, they plan to march on. If you do not place first or second place, are you staying in this race?
We're in it for the long haul.
In it for the long haul regardless.
Absolutely.
Chris Christie wrote off Iowa completely, pinning his hopes on New Hampshire. But now he's out of the race, not backing anyone yet.
We have to decide in the next 10 months, who do we want to be as a country?
The former New Jersey governor criticizing both Haley and DeSantis for not hitting Trump hard enough. At the debate, both sharpening their attacks on Trump, but treading carefully.
If Trump is the nominee, it's going to be about January 6th, legal issues, criminal trials.
I think what happened on January 6th was a terrible day, and I think President Trump will have to answer for it.
Trump going after Haley in a virtual rally last night.
I don't think Nikki's strong enough to be president. I know her very well. I know her better than anybody.
And acknowledging the brutal conditions his supporters will have to face to caucus tomorrow.
I worry about that, but at the same time, I'm watching even the newscast today. They're saying the Trump voter has so much more spirit, dedication, they say they'll walk over it last, that the Trump voter's coming to vote.
Despite those poll numbers, the DeSantis campaign is making it clear that he is not going anywhere. In fact, we were told the Florida governor plans to travel to South Carolina, then New Hampshire after the Iowa caucuses, hoping to send a message to his supporters and his rivals that he's in this for the long haul, John.
Thank you, Rachel. And we are joined now from Iowa, from Bettendorf, Iowa, by Republican presidential candidate Governor Ron DeSantis.
And I don't have any clips of the guests from the Sunday shows. I thought that was a pretty good news summary. I already showed you a Ron DeSantis clip from his second place finish where he gave a third place speech, apparently. But you saw Ron DeSantis there. I think he's been practicing his smile. Because he got it right most of the time. I think at the very end of that clip you saw he kind of smiled right. And he was on a couple of the shows, and most of the time he got his smile right. But actually at the very end of that interview, it was the one time he like messed up his smile. He has all this criticism for not knowing how to smile. I just actually imported a bonus clip here. This is the messed up smile from the end of that interview. Wait, did it get in the clip? Let me see. Oh, sorry. I actually edited that clip during the show and I didn't get it right, but maybe I'll do it during the next clip, which is the CBS News Face the Nation. Maybe after the CBS News Face the Nation news summary with Margaret Brennan and Anthony Salvanto. I'll get you the bad smile. I thought I got that. I guess I missed the part where he messed up his smile. It's like a second before that clip. I'll work it out during the next clip and have it for you afterwards. But meanwhile, I'm going to show you CBS News Face the Nation actually focused on their own national poll. You saw how ABC reported on the NBC News poll, but then had their own national poll. Here, CBS just focuses almost completely on their own national poll, which actually makes their news summary survive the fact that we're now past the Iowa caucus. Makes it still seem somewhat newsworthy, and I'll talk about that a little more. And I'll try to get you the messed up smile that I just messed up importing that last clip while we watch the CBS News Face the Nation news summary from Sunday together over here.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. We begin today not with what you do know, that it's very cold outside for most of the country and that former President Trump is looking strong in Iowa based on our reporting and state polls. We want to instead look...
Oh, sorry, I screwed that up. I was trying to delete the clip, but I'll start this over. Sorry.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. We begin today not with what you do know, that it's very cold outside for most of the country and that former President Trump is looking strong in Iowa based on our reporting and state polls. We want to instead look at the bigger picture, that all three top GOP contenders begin the year with a lead over President Biden in our CBS News poll. Former President Trump is up to 50 to 48%. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has a 3-point margin, 51 to 48%. Those two are both within the margin of error. But it's former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley who has the biggest lead, 8 points over President Biden at 53 to 45%. We turn now to CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, to tell us more. Anthony, good to have you here.
Good morning.
That's a pretty dramatic advantage for Haley over Biden. Why is she outperforming him instead of Trump or DeSantis?
Republican voters think it's Trump who has the best chance for them to beat Biden. Maybe they haven't seen this poll yet. But look, Haley is on qualities that people say they want in a president, better or about even with Biden. Things like empathy, things like ability to compromise, and toughness, where she leads and does just as well as the other two, DeSantis and Trump, right? The other part of this, Margaret, is just on straight demographics. She does well with women. She does better with independents. She does better getting people to cross over from Biden 2020 to her. All of that reflects some of Biden's underperformance with his Democratic base. And then finally, this point on the economy. We still see voters telling us, really by 2 to 1, that they feel like they might be worse off under Biden than better off financially. And that's important because it reflects this ongoing sting of what's happened with him and his ratings after inflation. Even though voters are starting to say, like, they think the economy is starting to stabilize, a little bit of improvement there, he's not getting the political benefit from that, partly because it's about the rate of change. Inflation is slowing, but prices are still high. And that doesn't look like his argument is resonating that well right now.
But voters may not see this hypothetical head-to-head matchup because your poll found President Trump with his biggest lead among GOP primary voters nationwide thus far this cycle, 55 points. What's driving it?
Indeed. Well, look, some of this is he just spans different parts of the party and has appeal. So for Republicans who want a tax cut, he's their guy. For Republicans who are MAGA, who want a more combative approach, who want that culture war, he's their guy. And part of it, just by the numbers, is he's got more strong supporters than anybody else, people who say they're considering only him, who will not change their minds. And that throughout this campaign has put a floor under his support that's been really hard for any other candidate to shake. And look, that part, in some sense, is not news, but contextually, as we go into this primary season, it's important to then reiterate that this is something and a phenomenon with this showing loyalty to an individual that we really have not seen for people in polling in U.S. politics other than for Donald Trump and that MAGA base.
So what about the content of what he is saying and his platform? I mean, he constantly says, I am your retribution, for example. What do voters think that means?
Well, the important thing here is comparing people who call themselves MAGA to the rest of the party, because the MAGA base is much more likely to say they like that idea, the idea of punishing or going after his political opponents if he gets into office. These are the kinds of things that get the other campaigns to talk about authoritarianism, things that are potential threats to democracy. But in the eyes of the MAGA base, they bought the narrative that the election was stolen. They want to see pardons for the January 6th rioters. And all of that means to them that they've had something taken from them, and they're trying to push back against it. And Donald Trump is their vehicle for that.
He's channeling something there.
Yes.
But what about rhetoric like his remarks that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country?
A majority of Republicans say they agree with his statements. And we looked at it both ways. When we told them Donald Trump said it, even more agreed with it, so he has that effect, but they agreed with it anyway, even when we didn't note that Donald Trump had said it. And look, that's important because it also speaks—
That's tremendous.
It is, and I think it speaks not just to issues with the border, but also to larger issues of race in this campaign. And I'll point it out this way. When we ask people what they think of diversity efforts in the U.S., the people who feel that diversity efforts in the U.S. have gone too far are overwhelmingly voting for Trump. The people who feel that they haven't gone far enough are overwhelmingly for Biden. And that tells you what that role of race is in the campaign. And that's an important dynamic, but not just when we look at the strong Trump support, but what sets up one of the key narratives going forward in the 24 campaign.
Fascinating, Anthony Salvanto. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our CBS Mornings anchor Tony Dokoupil is in Iowa and spoke yesterday to former Governor Nikki Haley.
Oh, and then there's a Nikki Haley interview. This is my other cat, by the way. This is Chong. Can you hear him purr? Holding his purr up to the microphone, so he's a very loud purr. He does a very loud purr there. That's Chong, but oh, he wants to go. And you see, as I said before I showed the clip, CBS focused on their own poll and some of the internals about there's a lot of really disturbing views in the majority of the Republican Party. Even if you split it MAGA, non-MAGA, there's like a non-MAGA part that is just, like far right, just not far right crazy, or I don't know. The Republican Party, geez. I don't know what to say about the internals of that poll, but it was pretty disturbing. And even though it wasn't really about Iowa, it's actually even more important. I have two kittens right here. But that is worth watching irrespective of the whole Iowa caucus situation, and they didn't really focus that much on the Iowa caucus, so I guess it continues to be newsworthy is the point I'm trying to make. Oh, and I before I showed the clip, I was trying to show you Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida messing up his smile at the end of the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos interview he did with Jon Karl. I edited that clip, and I think I got it for you here. Here's the messed up smile at the end of that interview.
All right, Governor Ron DeSantis, thank you for joining us this morning.
Coming up. Too much tongue? Something weird happened there. I think it was the tongue. But yeah, he messed up that smile. Most of the time, he got the smile right in the multiple interviews he did. But do you agree with me? Did he mess up the smile there? You can let me know what you think in the comment section. And now I'm going to get to the next news summary, the CNN State of the Union news summary, where it's actually Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. What a treat. Both of the co-hosts. They're both talking about the day before the Iowa caucus. Oh, the other thing is you saw on CBS News Face the Nation, after they had Margaret Brennan and Anthony Salvanto talk about the poll, they actually also had a reporter in Iowa, kind of like Rachel Scott in the ABC News Summary. I was already almost at 6 minutes, so I'm not going to show that whole thing, but down in the video description under sources, there's the Face the Nation YouTube channel where they upload the entire episode. Used to be in parts, but now they actually just upload the entire episode, so you can go watch it if you want to and see their report from Iowa. But now I'm going to move on to CNN State of the Union, both Jake Tapper and Dana Bash talking about Iowa and some polling results over in this clip.
Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is frozen. Tomorrow is one of the single most consequential days in this year's political calendar, the Iowa caucuses, where Donald Trump is hoping voters will help him sew up the primary contest almost before it begins. Late last night, the highly regarded Des Moines Register poll suggested Mr. Trump is well on his way toward achieving that goal. Nearly half of Iowa caucus goers said they would back the former president, with Trump leading every demographic group. And he far outpaces his nearest competitor, former UN ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, by almost 30 points. Haley's campaign welcomed the results last night as a sign of her momentum as she edged out Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who fell to third place. The rival spent Saturday campaigning in Iowa, while Trump flew in late last night. But it is far from clear that the gamble Haley and DeSantis took by challenging him for the nomination will ultimately pay off. The wild card Monday night, of course, is the dangerous cold front bearing down on Iowa, with the temperature expected near 20 degrees below zero. The candidates urge their supporters to brave the cold to go caucus tomorrow, but we're going to have to wait and see how much the bone-chilling weather and dangerous roads ends up affecting the turnout and the results. Joining me now from Iowa is my State of the Union co-host and friend, Dana Bash, to help us mark the 15th anniversary of State of the Union this week. Dana, thanks so much for getting up early and joining. I'm glad you're not outside. Set the stakes for us in light of the new poll.
As you said, the key thing to keep in mind is that Donald Trump is far and away the front runner. His support is as wide, Jake, as it is deep. And I remember being here in 2016. He was ahead at this point in the polls. He didn't win. He lost to Ted Cruz. And a big reason is because it was organic. He had no organization on the ground. It is very different this time, Jake. His campaign has been doing it in a very specific way. They have precinct captains in nearly 1,700 of the caucus sites, and that is certainly there. The thing that even the candidate, I am told, is asking over and over of his aides is, what about the weather? He's very concerned about it. Obviously, all of the candidates, everybody here is, because I came in here and it was, with the wind chill, minus 40 degrees. That's no joke, even for Iowans. So they are all of these campaigns are working on making sure that their supporters aren't complacent. Complacency with Trump is a big issue. They're concerned that the voters might not go because they think he's going to win, but also it is getting people to the caucus sites, even in this frigid cold.
And this new poll has Haley moving up to second place, DeSantis in third. What are you seeing on the ground there?
You know, with Nikki Haley, certainly that sort of top line number is a big deal for her. But if you look deeper inside the poll, Jake, the enthusiasm that she has isn't as strong. And that is a concern, generally speaking, but even and especially with weather like this. And I will just tell you anecdotally, we were at a DeSantis event yesterday, and we met several voters who came and said that they were Nikki Haley supporters, but they still wanted to come and hear Ron DeSantis just to be sure. Nikki Haley has spent, her super PAC has spent more than $30 million here in Iowa, much more than anybody else. So she's really investing here, but nothing, Jake, like Ron DeSantis. He's all in here. He says that it's not make or break here, but if you just look at where the campaign is, his campaign, and more importantly, his super PAC, which has really been kind of running the show here in Iowa, they have been talking about the vaunted organization that they have. I talked to one of his aides yesterday saying that they have knocked on more than 900,000 doors. They do have the same precinct captains that Donald Trump has. I met a few of them yesterday. They have pretty much pulled up stakes in New Hampshire, and they're all of their eggs are in the Iowa basket. So, yes, he is not as high in sort of the overall horse race number in that very important Des Moines Register poll that came out last night, but his support is more sticky, and the organization that the super PAC Never Back Down has built is much, much stronger, much more intense than Nikki Haley's, by all accounts, here on the ground in Iowa.
All right, Dana, stay warm, and thanks so much. And joining me now is Republican presidential candidate, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
And yeah, so like I said, Ron DeSantis was on several shows, and I think he stuck the smile on most of them. I already showed you the one where he didn't. But that Dana Bash analysis really holds up after seeing the difference between what the Des Moines Register poll predicted here and then the results that actually happened. So kudos to Dana Bash from both combining the internals of that poll that showed that Nikki Haley had much lower enthusiasm, and then also her anecdotal experiences talking to voters in Iowa. That Dana Bash's analysis really holds up after we know the results, even though she was talking on Sunday morning. So that's, like I said, an interesting perspective to get on the Sunday morning shows, which is why I kind of held off till Tuesday morning to do my Monday media mix-up. Monday media mix-up on Tuesday. What can I tell you? It's cats and dogs living together or whatever. But I have one more news summary to show you. It's the Fox News Sunday news summary from Shannon Bream and then their reporter in Iowa, Aisha Hosni. It's the shortest of the news summaries, only about 3 minutes long, and I'll talk about it with you a little more after we watch it together over here.
Hello from Des Moines for a very special Iowa Caucuses edition of Fox News Sunday. All of the major GOP candidates are meeting with likely caucus voters today, including the frontrunner Donald Trump. There is a brand new poll out from the Des Moines Register that shows the state of the race here in Iowa going into caucus day. In a moment, we will get reaction to it and much more from both Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. But first, we turn to Fox News congressional correspondent Aisha Hosni with those poll numbers. We were refreshing those screens last night. Aisha, what got news?
Shannon, good morning to you. Yes, let's first get to this brand new Des Moines Register poll. Former President Trump remaining the front runner with a commanding lead of 48%. The big change, though, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is now edging out Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for second place. But the story here in Iowa is the weather, Shannon. The blizzard ate into a critical campaign time over the weekend, including 3 Trump rallies that had to be canceled. And now, historically low temperatures for caucus night could complicate turnout in some parts of the state.
I'm asking for your vote on Monday night.
The countdown to the Iowa caucuses is on. GOP hopefuls are crisscrossing the state.
I'm running for your issues.
Flooding the airwaves.
We have to leave behind the chaos and drama of the past.
And flaunting big endorsements.
Ron DeSantis is going to win the Iowa caucus.
To make a final pitch to caucus goers.
We're 100% in for Trump for caucus.
I'm a Ramaswamy caucuser. Number 2. That's a success. That's a massive win for Ron DeSantis if he's number 2.
I'm absolutely going to caucus for Nikki Haley. I decided that the first time I saw her speak.
It's a race that seems all but decided.
And we're going to have a great victory.
The question now, will Iowans turn out a surprise and upend the entire primary? That will come down to turnout.
No one knows what the turnout's going to be. Obviously, with the weather, it could mean it's less.
Below negative temperatures may keep folks home. Monday is forecasted to be the coldest caucus night ever.
It feels like it's going to hurt probably all the candidates.
Former President Trump's strength is in rural Iowa, while former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley pulls support in and around Des Moines. Everyone, even the faraway frontrunner, now trying to get out the vote.
So don't stay home, just please.
And Shannon, interestingly enough, President Biden is also trying to take advantage of the national spotlight on Iowa right now, sending in some heavyweights like movie mogul Jeff Katzenberg, who is co-chairing the Biden campaign, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker for counter-programming on Monday. But this year really is all about the Republicans. Shannon?
Aisha, thank you so much. We'll see you later in the show. Joining us now, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley. Good.
And anyway, that's the final news summary I wanted to show you. They didn't really talk as much about the internals of the poll, about the low enthusiasm for Nikki Haley, and that combined with the bad weather. I mean, maybe the bad weather and the low enthusiasm for Nikki Haley made this Trump's big victory, that it was his best case scenario, best possible outcome, like going back to the title of my video here. And that's basically how it happened. And the big NBC News Des Moines Register Mediacom poll was almost correct, but it didn't show Trump getting over 50%, which is a big deal. Although on MSNBC, they keep pointing out, like, actually, there's about half of the Republican Party that didn't want Trump, which is pretty bad for a quasi-incumbent like Trump. So I guess that's another way to look at Trump's 51%. Like, 49% of Iowa Republicans don't want Trump, but I don't know. You can let me know what you think about that in the comment section. And I'm finishing up here, and you saw all the clips I picked out, my added media criticism and political commentary just below the video. There are a couple ways you can support my channel financially if that's something you want me to keep doing, and I have committed to doing it. I think we're basically at about the 1 year mark, the last year of my live streams. I think I'm going to go through the inauguration in 2025, so we're maybe a year and a week away from when I'm going to stop doing the live streams. I mean, unless I get like some huge amount of financial support that people want me to keep doing a weekly show, but I might start doing like edited, produced videos on a more irregular basis after the next year, or maybe just some pop-up live streams. Well, we'll have to see who wins and what's happening, and I'll come up with some plan once I know that. But anyway, that is the last of the clips, the last of the commentary and criticism. I did promise, even though I've given you some live shots of my cats Cheech and Chong, which I again need to point out that when we adopted them from the shelter, they were already named Cheech and Chong. We did not make up those names. They're two kitten brothers we adopted a little over a month ago. I've been, since then, showing you bonus Cheech and Chong clips at the end. And a lot of them have them, like, battling each other, and they seem kind of like they have a really negative adversarial relationship, but sometimes they pivot, like Trump in the beginning of that clip I showed of his Iowa victory speech, where they're like nice to each other. And I wanted to show you a brief Cheech and Chong clip of them sort of cuddling and licking each other, which they also do a lot over here. So there you go. That's the bonus Cheech and Chong clip. I will be back next Monday, even though it's the day before the New Hampshire primary. I'm not going to delay this all the way till after New Hampshire. I'm going to do the show Monday afternoon, California time, as usual. This Tuesday thing, actually, it was kind of a hassle, but it was a 3-day weekend, so I also kind of got a lot more Monday off. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you who showed up for the live stream. I appreciate my recorded show viewers. If you want to tell me what you think, leave me a comment, especially on the recorded show. I read all the comments. The live stream, I read as much as I can. And anyway, until next Monday, the week before, we get to see if Nikki Haley actually wins, or the day before, we get to see whether Nikki Haley actually wins the New Hampshire primary. And I think her chances of beating Trump went from like 10% to 5% yesterday. Ron DeSantis basically had no chance, even though he came in second. He's, like I was saying earlier, where else is he going to win? Nikki Haley has one or two more places she could win, New Hampshire and South Carolina, and if she does those two things, she has a small chance of beating Donald Trump, but based on what we've seen so far, not very likely. You can let me know what you think in the comment section. And anyway, until next Monday, or until I have some other reason to upload a video, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.